But you see, when dealing with me, the family didn't know they were dealing with a staunch character. Staunch. Staunch. There's nothing worse than a staunch woman, I tell you that. T for two and two for tea, you for me and me for you. Edie, where's my pate? And welcome back to another episode of Crips and Corks. I'm your host, DJ, here with my... Welcome back to another episode of Crips and Corks. I'm your host, DJ, here with my co-host...
Paul, as usual.
Jesus, it's like 90 degrees out, and you look ready for the tundra.
I know! I suffer for you guys. I put myself through it because I'm what? A professional. And I will do anything for the bit.
I read that on the bathroom stall at Lucky's.
Mm-hmm. I'm a professional.
Yes, we're both suffering for our art today.
We are.
Something that the subject of the episode will understand. But first, Paul, how's your week? Tell me your blessing and your curse.
So, for my blessing, I saw this new movie called Talk to Me. And the directors were actually on the last podcast on the left. Mm-hmm. They were there, and they're interesting guys. And the movie, it was actually a really good spooky movie. I haven't seen a good horror movie like that in a while. So it was a good blessing to see that sort of good horror movie that I've been enjoying. Now, the curse, as one might have guessed, is the fucking heat. Because we're going through a heat wave, and it's crazy!
Yes, I can agree with that. It did break today, though, a little bit. It went from being like 95 to 80, and you know it's really fucking hot when 80 degrees feels cool.
I know. And I'm one of those people that, like, I can't decide if I hate the hot more or the cold, because I very much do hate the cold, but this hot, we're not rocking with it.
I like a temperate weather.
Exactly. A good 69.
And here's I suffer right now because I live with my grandparents and they keep the house super fucking cold with the AC.
They got that electricity money to be making that
yes,
shit that
but
cold.
It's like freezing. So I'm like walking around in a tank top with a sweater over top.
Yeah.
And then you walk outside and it's like you're stripping layers off. And it's like, can't we make the inside be a nice middle ground rather than the fucking tundra?
Right. That's how you get pneumonia, I think, is going from cold to hot like that constantly.
Yeah.
Or like jaundice or something.
Yeah, and last weekend I stayed over at my aunt's house sitting, and she had her house really cold, and I definitely started to feel the scratchy throat.
I feel...
Yeah, and it was right before our live show, and I was real scared.
Speaking of which, we did our live show on Gettysburg. It went well. It was cool. It did
go well.
It was fun. We got the girls up in the gig. We told a few secrets.
This is no news to you because it's been a couple weeks for you. But for us, we're like fresh off that success.
Exactly. And if you were there, you know some secrets about me. You know secrets about Gettysburg and the Farnsworth Inn. There's a lot of things that happen at our live shows that you're not going to get just on the regular podcast.
Yeah, the only thing that you get on the regular podcast that they also got was Paul making fun of my weight.
Yeah. That was a running theme the entire night.
That was a running theme, and then we went and we had drinks with friends afterwards, and I just spent an hour and a half getting, okay, to be fair, it wasn't Paul, it was me calling myself fat. So I spent an hour and a half making fat jokes about myself, and then immediately the waitress at the bar carded everyone in the group except for me.
That's not a fat thing. That is
I know, that was an old thing.
Yeah.
That was an old thing. So my self-esteem was really, really rock bottom.
Yeah, that was what.
Our friend,
no, thanks, sweetie.
We were leaving the bar, and the folks from Trendle Manor said, "Do you want to come drink by the river with us?" And I was like, "No. If I drink any more, I will end up in the Monongahela." I was also hungry.
Mood. Damn. Listen, if you're watching Trundlecast, if you're watching my Trundle Manor fellows, invite me to drink by the river soon. I want to be there.
Or just invite us to come over and drink, because we will gladly do that.
Yes.
Anyways, do you want to hear my blessings and curses?
Sure.
My blessing is that tomorrow I'm leaving to go for a weekend up in Chicago visiting our good friend Mike and his partner. Very excited about that. My curse is I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Chicago and I'm not yet packed.
Girl, you better get to packing. You better...
I have all day tomorrow. So I'm taking the train. It leaves at midnight, so I literally have time.
Girl, you got a lot of jock straps to fit in a little suitcase. You better get that shit a-moving.
We'll see.
Do you have anything else to add about your week, or should I?
No, take us into Pop Culture Corner.
Well, as promised, we will be discussing JoJo Siwa.
Oh.
Now, if you remember, she was on Dance Moms, but now she was somewhat of an LGBT icon. It is still Pride Month when we're filming this.
I don't know if I would classify her as an icon. I think she is a person who happens to be LGBT.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. And Karma, okay, whatever. That song, whatever. I was never a huge JoJo girly. Still not to this day. Especially after she went on the Celebrity Big Brother with a whole ass...
A they-them partner.
They-them partner, yes. She had a whole ass they-them partner and then proceeds to hook up with this man on Celebrity Big Brother, right? And then she comes back from Celebrity Big Brother with this man, and the they-them partner comes into the party afterwards at the Celebrity Big Brother party and is like, hey, JoJo, we should probably talk about this and stuff. And JoJo is like, yeah, it's over. And she dumped the they-them partner for
on
this
TV?
straight-ass man. Yes. She didn't dump him on TV, but afterwards. And then she's dating this man still now, right? Mm-hmm. She is now blaming the LGBTQ community for pushing her to come out as a lesbian.
No one pushed her to come out as a lesbian. Mm-hmm. This seems like she's cloying for follows. This is like last year around this time when she claimed she invented gay pop.
Which she did not.
She did not. I mean...
She barely does pop.
She is like I'll give her, she's like a C-list celebrity.
Right.
I was going to say D, but I think at this point she's at least a C.
She's definitely a C, maybe B.
She's not an A. She's a B minus.
B minus. We'll give her B minus.
We'll give her B minus.
Because everybody knows who she is.
She's trying so hard to be relevant, but she's doing it in all the wrong ways.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I look at her and look at what she's doing, and I'm like, are the younger gays standing? Like, are they living for what she's doing? Do they think she's an icon? Because
I hope not.
I think she might be kind of like the Miley of our generation, like how the older gays probably look down on Miley, but Miley's a queen, so, like, is JoJo their Miley?
I think she's a young person exploring her sexuality, and I think she, for better or worse, jumped to the lesbian.
Yeah, she was still figuring herself out. And
I think she, steamrolled right past bi, and
yeah, very that. I know what you're saying.
I went to high school with someone, and she, started dating a girl, and she was very big into being a lesbian, and now she's dating a boy, and she's like, no, I'm straight. And it's like, girl, you're obviously either pan or bi.
Right.
This bi erasure is, terrible.
Right. I think we need more bi people. I think everyone should just be bi by default, and then you figure it out later.
Yeah, I think we should assume everyone's bi until they identify as something else.
Exactly. I like that.
I mean, personally, as a gay person, I personally just assume everyone is gay until they tell me they're not.
Exactly. But she's getting a lot of heat online for blaming the LGBT community for...
As you should. And there's, so much... But also, there's something I'm noticing in the wider community, because I see... And I talked to you a little bit about this, but I'm seeing a lot of, gay men give up, and they're dating their, single female friends.
Yeah, there's a lot of giving up going on, which I can't blame them.
And they're like, this isn't a lavender marriage. It's a spiritual relationship you don't understand. And it's like, Yeah, I understand it. I have that relationship with lots of people. You and I have a very spiritual friendship. That doesn't mean I'm going to marry you.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, you and I would not have a fulfilling marriage.
Exactly.
And that's what people have to realize is that marriage isn't something you settle into. Marriage is something you go into with somebody who you know you can make it with. So you don't settle, and it's not just like, okay, I'm just going to do this. It's like either you get married or you don't. And I say that as somebody who I really want to get married, and I'm approaching the age where I'm like, maybe that's not part of my journey.
Maybe it's not part of our journey. I mean, we're getting to that age, girl.
Anyways, is there anything else for Pop Culture Corner, or I need a drink after that?
No, that's it. We just had to talk about JoJo during Pride Month and all the tea and all the hate she's getting online for blaming the LGBT.
Actually, this comes out in July, so it's no longer Pride Month.
I have to get this sentence out at least once. Okay.
I'm sorry.
She's blaming the LGBT for forcing her to come out as gay. So she's getting a lot of hate online. She's a lot of things going on, and that was the moral of that story. Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry. No. We're also recording this after work, which always goes like a dumpster fire.
Right.
I apologize.
Because we're tired and
I apologize. That's on me. I'm not on my A game.
That's okay. Neither am I.
Would you like a drink?
Sure.
Today we're going to be drinking Martini and Rossi Asti. It is a quality aromatic sparkling wine.
Aromatic?
Yeah, so basically like champagne.
Aroma?
Yeah.
Aromatic? Aromatic. Aromatic.
Aromantic? Is that what you're trying to say?
Are you aromantic?
No, I'm not.
Neither am I.
I think it means that it has a lot of...
Shout out to my aromantic girlies out there.
Yeah, normally we do the wine condom off screen, but like, there's just so much going into a champagne bottle.
That's tea. Ooh,
that was a nice pop.
That was a good pop. That was good. She was good. A good girl.
ASMR pour. You gotta do a slow pour with the champagne. I'm gonna turn a little more so it sounds a little bit better. I really hope that turned out. Otherwise, that's a long, dead silence. Cheers.
Cheers.
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. That'll give you some champagne problems. Okay, in the best way. And these bubbles, they're so pretty.
Yes.
5 grapes, y'all. What brand is this?
This is Martini and Rossi. It's not actual champagne. It is an Italian sparkling wine. But Martini and Rossi Asti. It's actually my favorite.
This is real good. This will impress your friends. Bring this to your bat mitzvahs if you're going to like a baby shower, right? Let's say your friend's pregnant. Give her this, okay?
It is sweeter than a real champagne, but it's not as sweet as a Prosecco.
This is nice. That's real nice. That has a good flavor to it. A good body, if you will. A good, berry body?
A body beautiful, if you will.
Those grapes are getting me together. Those fruits.
Well, I think, Paul, this is a good time for me to tell you a story.
Let's get into it.
They were American royalty, sitting at the tip top of the social pyramid. They enjoyed homes in Manhattan and the Hamptons. They attended parties people would kill to be invited to. They counted presidents and princes among their relatives. And then it all went away, and they were left living in squalor in a run-down, trash-filled mansion they shared with 32 stray cats and a raccoon. How did the mighty fall so far, and do they linger on in this Hamptons mansion? This week, we're covering a couple of staunch characters, Paul, darling. That's right. Staunch. Staunch. Get your champagne and pate ready. Let the cat in and let's visit Big and Little Edie at Grey Gardens and the ghosts which continue to haunt this famed home.
Ma, I got pate for the cats. No, giblets.
Giblets.
I got giblets for the cats.
Edie! Where's my pate?
Leave me alone, Mom. I'm finger banging the cats.
I'm gonna die if I don't eat Edie!
Fuck you, Mom. You're the reason life is like this.
Jackie wouldn't have left me!
You look like a ham in a scarf, Mom.
No, Little Edie was the one who had the scarves.
Whoops.
Have you ever seen the documentary Now version of Grey Gardens?
No.
You got floor at my lima beans!
I think I actually have seen that. Yes.
Oh, it's my
funny.
leg. It's 'cause you stomp! I do not stomp. You do! I love that part.
That's so funny.
That's the only part I need. But yeah, that is a take on the famed documentary masterpiece Grey Gardens, which we're going to talk about today. So, Grey Gardens is a 28-bedroom mansion in the Hamptons village of East Hampton along New York's Gold Coast. It is called the Gold Coast because so many millionaires have their summer homes along it.
What are you going to do with 28 bedrooms?
Not bedrooms, rooms in general.
Rooms in general, okay.
Rooms in general. Now, from the get-go, this land was a little ooky spooky wooky.
Ooh.
In that, the original 4-acre oceanfront estate was bought in 1895 by F. Stanhope Phillips and his wife Margaret. Or since they're fancy, we're going to say it's Margaret.
Margie.
Margaret.
Margie.
Margie. It's not Margie, it's Margie.
Margie.
And they intended to build a house there until they discovered that the dead guy whose estate they bought it off of actually bequeathed the land to the U.S. government. So they had to bribe the government to get the land that they already paid for.
Now, this isn't Little Edie yet. This is
No.
her father?
No, not even. These are two randos.
That's interesting that they had to bribe the government, though.
Everything, comes back around in this. After working the issue out, the Phillips hired famed Hamptons architect Joseph Greenleaf Thorpe to design the home, which was not immediately built because they had further issues with zoning the property. In 1901, Stanhope Phillips died suddenly and left his entire $9 million estate and the house to his wife Margaret, but his brother sued Margaret, claiming that she used undue influence to receive the estate from his brother, and that she probably murdered him because she had him cremated.
Oh my god. It was his wife! She put in the work even if she did murder him! She put in the work! What do you want from her?
So the courts actually did decide in Margaret's favor, and she kept the estate and the house. But in 1913, she sold the estate to Consolidated Coal Corporation president Robert C. Hill and his wife Anna Gilman Hill. Anna was a renowned gardener and imported ornate concrete walls from Spain to enclose the garden, which she filled with hydrangeas and roses and lilies.
See, I feel like concrete walls around a garden would just, it takes away from the garden vibe. It's too, concrete, industrial. For a garden, you need wrought iron fences.
Well, they're not normal concrete, they're decorative concrete. There's carvings and it's meant to look medievally. And
Okay.
I think she chose it because the house was also gray shingled.
Oh, okay, so she wanted to match the house.
Yes. And at this time, walled garden was all the rage, but most people did bricks. So I think she was trying to go for more of the gray of the house. The sand dunes also looked gray in certain light, and then the sea mist also looked gray. And so all of this gray lent the name Grey Gardens to the estate.
Oh, okay. Gray is such an awful color to like name your estate, like or just make it gray. Like it's
It's
such a
Grey, which almost makes it seem more like it's a name than the color.
yeah, but still gray. It's just so drab. It's so boring. If you're rich, why not do gold or some
But
shit?
this is right at the end of the Gilded Age where everything was really colorful, so she was probably really ahead of the curve by doing like all this gray.
All
And
right.
also she has the really colorful flowers, which makes them stand out more. They're not competing with a colored stone.
Maybe she was just a 50 Shades of Grey stan.
Maybe she was. In 1924, its most famous residents moved in when it was bought by Phelan Beale.
That's a like flan.
Yeah, a little bit.
It
Phelan,
sounds like
Phelan. I've heard both. Phelan Beale.
Sounds like a dessert.
A little bit. He was a lawyer from New York, and his wife Edith Ewing Bouvier Beale. Now, in this
Now
case,
that's a name.
that
bitch.
is a name. So, in this instant, so Edith obviously is her first name. Ewing is her middle name.
Okay.
Bouvier is her maiden name, and Beale is her married name.
I like the name Bouvier.
Bouvier. So,
And Ewing is a bad middle name.
so at this time, if you're wealthy, most of the times your middle name would be a last name of another relative.
Mm-hmm.
So you would see a lot of, especially firstborns, their middle name would be their mother's maiden name.
Interesting. See, I kind of like that. We should continue that tradition.
I'm trying to think of another famous instance of this. I know. Oh, I know. So Dolly Madison,
Okay.
the famed, she was the fourth first lady of the United States. James Madison's wife, the one who saved George Washington's picture. Her maiden name was Payne. Her eldest son was, because she was married once before, was her husband's name, and his middle name was Payne, and they just called him Payne, which I found kind of ironic. I did a paper on him in school. He was kind of a pain in the ass later in life, so I thought it was very apt.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And that would, so if it was a son, oftentimes they would be called by that. And I think,
We gotta tap out of the jacket, y'all. It's
okay, you're
hot
pulling at
already.
me.
It's hot already, y'all. We gotta tap out of the jacket for a little bit.
Anyways,
Might come back later.
Edith was the daughter of John Verneau Bouvier II, who was a renowned lawyer and judge from New York, whom Phelan was law partners with. And he actually lived 3 miles north in the swankier village of Southampton. Now, Edith wanted to live in East Hampton. Is this East Hampton? Yes, East Hampton rather than Southampton, because all the rich people lived in Southampton, and East Hampton was a little more country-esque and a little more quiet.
See, I feel that. I like the country feel. I like the quiet, so I get that.
And her father, John, lived in a very famous estate called Lasata.
Lasata.
And it still stands today.
Nice.
Now, John Bouvier claimed that the Bouvier line was descended from French nobility and went so far as to publish a book attesting to this fact that he would distribute to all members of his family. Actually, the Bouviers were descended from French cabinet makers.
Damn. It's funny he wrote a whole ass book about it and it wasn't even true.
Yeah.
That's really committing to the bit.
And when I say published, he didn't have it published by a publishing house. He paid to have it published.
Girl. Rich people really can do whatever they want.
I used to work for a self-publisher. Like, if you have the money, there's a reason it's called vanity publishing. This is vanity publishing.
Very that. Very that.
Now, John was also the father of John Verneau Bouvier III, who is better known as Blackjack Bouvier,
I like that. Well, get into Blackjack Bouvier.
who was a noted playboy. He was called Blackjack because he was fastidious about having a year-round tan. And he had 2 daughters, Jacqueline and Lee Bouvier, who will come up later.
Period.
Now, Edith, growing up, had a passion for the performing arts. She studied piano and singing, and she actually pursued an amateur singing career prior to her marriage. She married Phelan when she was like young. She married him pretty young. He was 10 years older than her. And she had to give up her singing career for the marriage. As a wedding gift, he bought her a Rolls Royce and a chauffeur.
Hey, girl, get into the Rolls Royce. You can sing in the back of your Rolls Royce, girl.
And she continued to offer private performances after her marriage. Now, they had 3 children. Edith Bouvier Beale. In this case, Bouvier is a middle name. Philan Beale Jr. and Bouvier Beale. Bouvier was his first name.
Bouvier Beale.
Bouvier Beale. His mother's maiden name was his first name.
Interesting.
I think he was called Bud.
It's kind of close to Beau.
A little bit, but I think he was called Beau or Bud.
Makes sense. I got you.
Now, we're going to focus on the eldest, Edith, or as she was called, Little Edie. So you had Big Edie and Little Edie. Just to make things easy, I'm going to refer to the mom as Edith and the daughter as Edie.
Okay.
Now, Edie had a lavish upbringing between the family's Manhattan home, which is now the site of the luxury hotel, the Carlisle, and Grey Gardens, and went on to be presented to society with a grand ball at the luxury hotel, the Pierre, in New York City.
Yeah.
She was a noted beauty and was nicknamed Body Beautiful Beale.
Body Beautiful Beale?
Yes.
Yo! She had the dudes on their knees!
Yes, she did. She was known as like she was the eldest grandchild of John Bouvier. And she was like considered to be the family beauty. She was tall, she had a gorgeous figure, beautiful face, she had this blonde hair and deep blue eyes.
I didn't know she was about that life.
She was actually a model.
Period. That's so cool.
She was so beautiful, she was noted. She was pursued by many of the era's most influential men, including J. Paul Getty, who would one day be the world's richest man. Howard Hughes, who was then
Getty Images?
I don't know if he had anything to do with Getty Images or if that's associated with the museum that he founded. He was the one whose grandson was kidnapped for all that money and they sent the ear and he wouldn't pay the ransom.
Bitch, I don't know that story.
Oh, we'll have to cover that.
Yeah, that sounds crazy.
And Howard Hughes, who was at the time the world's richest man, he was the guy who walked around with tissue boxes on his shoes. Later, he had OCD.
I didn't even know about that.
We may cover that one. And she claimed to have been engaged to the son of the U.S. ambassador to Britain, Joseph P. Kennedy Jr., who was JFK's older brother.
Oh, okay. Nice.
However, much like her mother, Edie had a passion for performance and wanted to run away from high society and pursue a career as a dancer.
I'm a star!
It was very much that.
But Mom, I'm a star! I'm not meant for this little life.
Now, Edith kind of pushed Edie into that. Edith actually took her daughter out of school for 2 years, claiming a lung ailment.
Really? She's posing for Playboy at 15?
No, this is when she was like... It was like from the time she was 8 to 10. Took her to the movies and the theater every day. And even though she couldn't go to school because she had a lung ailment, she was well enough for Edith to take her on a shopping spree to Paris.
Wait, so the lung ailment was real or not real?
No. I think Edie was like Edith's best friend. Like, they did everything together at this point. And so I think it was just Edith didn't want Edie to be in school. So she claimed this lung ailment.
Yeah. So she didn't have a lung ailment. So what's the problem with going to Paris? Fuck it.
Yeah, and I guess when you have all the money in the world,
you can do whatever you want. I guess you can go to the movies every day for 2 years and watch whatever God knows movie they were showing back in the day.
Yeah. Well, they also went to the theater.
Oh.
So they would go to the theater. The theater, the opera, because Edith did want to be an opera star.
But Mummy, I want to go to the theater. I want to see the people dance.
They did that too. Now, in 1931, when Edie was just about to turn 14, Philan and Edith separated, with Edith preferring to live in Grey Gardens almost full time.
Understandable.
Edie, after her debut into society a couple years later, however, moved to New York full-time and began a career as a model and attempted to break into acting. Now, throughout the 1930s, she would actually run away from home 3 different times to try and escape the high society upbringing and attain an artistic life. At one point, she ran away to Palm Beach and was almost successful. Like, she started to like get offers to be in cabarets and stuff, and then her father came and found her. Another time, she ran away to New York. Like, didn't tell anyone. Like, she just ran away from the family home, and her picture was like put up in a theater for a modeling agency, and her father happened to walk by, and when he saw it, he went and he like punched the producer out.
Oh my god.
Found out where she was and literally dragged her home kicking and screaming.
But daddy,
I want... Wait, hang on, I can do the little Edie voice. Staunch, but daddy, I want to be a dancer.
Daddy, I slept with the producer for this.
She did not sleep with the producer. She did, however, have an affair with Julius Capt Krug, the future Secretary of the Interior. Who was married.
Which interior?
Of the United States.
Isn't it all interior?
Except for the coasts. The guy in charge of the land.
You know, the guy with the land, okay.
Yeah, focus more on the secretary part and less on the interior part. He worked for Truman.
I always wondered what the interior part of that was, though. Jokes aside.
I don't know. Would you like me to look it up?
No, it's fine.
Thank God, because it's not in my research. Now, as the 1940s came on, Edith suffered multiple distresses that really set her back in life. Firstly, in 1940, her mother died, leaving with her, and like by this point, her children are all in school. And her husband's left her. So the only person she has for support is her father. Her father's idea of support was to write her angry letters from his home 3 miles away, saying that she had to cancel her membership at the local country club and sell her home for money.
That's honestly low key. That is so funny. Writing your daughter letters from 3 miles away.
Yeah, it's like not even picking up the phone. They had phones. They were rich.
Right. Like, bitch, what are we doing?
Now, I will say, Beale was very proud of himself that he lost no money in the crash of 1929. However, as the Depression wore on, he started to lose money just as the Depression went on. And in 1937, he actually did write a letter to his wife saying, "Don't let Edie know that the money's running out because this is a life she's only ever known, and if she finds out, she'll think it's the end of the world."
So things are slowly coming.
Things are not going well. And actually, a couple years later, when her son Philin Jr. got married, she and her father had a total falling out when she showed up to the wedding in an outfit he didn't approve of, and he wrote her out of the will there on the spot.
That's crazy. See, rich people do crazy shit like that. That's crazy about him. Right on the spot, he said, "Get my lawyer here right fucking now."
Now, Edie would later say that there was a trust fund that her and her mother were supposed to be included in after her grandfather died, but that her uncle Blackjack actually sidelined them so that his daughters could have more money. But this isn't really likely because his daughters got most of their like money and upbringing from their stepfather.
That's crazy. They're just fighting over trust funds and shit. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I wish I had a trust fund. Girl.
In 1946, Philin notified her via a telegram that he had gone to Mexico to get a quickie divorce from her.
Damn. That's rough.
He couldn't even call her.
This is Little Edie?
This is Big Edie.
Big Edie. So this is her second husband.
No, this is her first husband. She's only married once. Yeah, he separated when she was like 35, and then like 10... About 15 years later, he like telegrammed her like, "Yeah, I'm leaving you for my secretary."
Damn. It's always the secretary, too.
And at this, Edith...
That's what we need to do to get married. We have to become secretaries.
I'm basically a secretary already. I hope work doesn't find this quote.
Oh my god.
So at this latest little incident, Edith's world just like fell apart, and she fell into super deep depression and started putting on a lot of weight. because she has no money, her kids have left, her husband's left her, and so she just kind of like retreats into her like own little world.
She probably went crazy a little bit.
Yeah. And in 1952, she had to summon Edie back to Grey Gardens from New York because she could no longer afford to buy Edie's groceries for her.
Damn, that's sad. When you're rich like that, and then all of a sudden you can't even buy groceries.
Now, Edie did suffer from a condition called alopecia totalis, which is a condition that makes all of your body hair fall out. And they think that the stress of her, like, losing all of her money and having to move home to take care of her mother really exasperated this and caused it to, like, rapidly advance. Other stories have that, that she suffered it before and it like grew back, and like at this like the stress was just too much and so it just all fell and grew out. However, her cousin John Davis recalled that it was during this time that Edie climbed a tree and set her hair on fire with a cigarette lighter, and that's why she lost all of her hair.
Homegirl's crazy. She said, can you imagine just how that scene probably went down? She said, I'm gonna climb this tree and I'm gonna burn my hair out.
No, it's also suspected that it was around this time that her last like big love affair with Cap was like broken off. Like she couldn't get a job in acting, her love affair fell through, her mother, like she lost all of her money, her mother said you have to move home.
This was her literal Britney Spears breakdown moment.
And so she started experimenting with wearing fabulous headscarves.
Like the ones we have adorned today for you all.
And are sweating through. Now, as the years wore on, the two former high society debutantes retreated into their own little world within Grey Gardens. And this wasn't just because they were eccentric. It was because Phelan Jr. and Bouvier gave their mother $300 a month for their upkeep and the upkeep of the house.
Okay. So they're paying rent, they're doing things.
So this is a 28-room mansion. Mm-hmm. These are two rich women, and they have to survive on $300 a month, which is like $4,000 a month now, which you and I would kill for $4,000 a month.
But it's not much.
It's not much. It was also around this time that they met a local drunk named Tom Logan, who was super infatuated with Edith, and they invited him to move in as a live-in handyman who would fix things in between drunken binges where he would just disappear for months at a time.
He was probably like, I think you're so pretty. My favorite part about you is that you don't have any hair.
Wrong, Edie.
It reminds me of my father.
I love it when you sing to me. Will you sing me Baba Black Sheep again?
Woo. Mother.
Now, this wasn't the first, like, live-in man that Edith and Big Edie invited to live in the house. For many years, she had, what was his first name? I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Gold, and he was her piano accompanist. Mm-hmm. And so basically Edith would just like invite these men to live with her that would be like stand-in husbands and companions to her.
See, that ain't too bad. Having a nice rotation, keeping things fresh.
Yeah, but she also supported them. So like she was kind of like their sugar mama.
You know, there's plenty of people who do that. And who am I to judge?
Now, the ladies continued to venture out, attending local parties and going to the club until they couldn't afford the membership. But they pretty much stopped going out when, in the late 50s, early 60s, while they were at a party, somebody broke into the house and stole a bunch of valuables.
Shit, that sucks.
It does suck because, like, being rich, they had a lot of valuables. And either they were selling them off piece by piece for money, or they had a lot of, like, sentimental attachment.
Right. So they lost a lot of money.
So they stopped going out. But it did not stop Edie from attending in 1961 the inauguration of John F. Kennedy as president, to whom her cousin Jackie had married.
Miss Bouvier.
Yes, Jackie Bouvier Kennedy was now the nation's first lady.
Exactly.
And being little Edie, at the festivities, she walked right up to JFK's father, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., and said, "If your son Joe had never died, he would have been president and I'd be first lady right now."
That was probably a faux pas. He probably shouldn't have said that shit. Because didn't he, just die, too?
No, he died during World War II. He died in a plane crash.
Oh.
He was a fighter pilot.
Then it's fine, then. If the wound wasn't that fresh, it's fine.
No, but just to say that. But that was very much little Edie. She just, said it how it was.
Hey, more power to her. That's how those theater girls be.
And actually, this was a pretty good time because they were so, Jackie used to, vacation at Grey Gardens. Her grandfather, she would stay with her grandfather during summers, who lived 3 miles up the road, and it would just be oh, go to your Aunt Edie's and spend time with your cousin Edie. And so there would be Secret Service agents watching the house.
Okay.
It was also in the early 60s that Edith, the mom, began to develop arthritis and needed full-time care, which exacerbated their not going out. In 1963, around the time of the JFK assassination, Tom Logan died on his cot in the kitchen. The two Edies immediately began to notice things like soap and scissors would go missing and then reappear, and they always blamed it on the ghost of Tom.
That's crazy. Do you think all the cats started eating him? Did we talk about the cats yet? Do they have all the cats yet?
We have not started talking about the cats yet. But I think this is when there was just 1 or 2 cats.
Well, what if the cats started eating him?
They found him the next morning.
Yeah, and what if the cats had already started?
Okay, you're right.
The cats are eating the gardener, Mom.
Now, as the money ran out, the house just fell into total disrepair, to the point where in 1972, the Suffolk County Health Department raided the home, which they found to be full of trash, reeking of cat urine and feces, full of stray cats, and a raccoon the Edies had named Buster, that they would feed Wonder Bread to.
Oh, I love Buster.
Buster's the mascot of this.
Okay, we stand the raccoon we're feeding Wonder Bread to. That's iconic. I would love that.
No, this raid was super, it really affected the Edies because, the county evicted them. They said this house is not fit for human habitation. We're going to tear it down. You got to get out. And before they broke down the front door, and they had a fire hose, and they just sprayed the interior of the house with the fire hose.
That's crazy.
Which is not going to help, because, the roof is already leaking.
Right, what are we doing? What, spraying all this trash? It's still going to be trash in the fucking house. It's just going to be wet now, so it's going to have mold.
Now, the raid was actually the subject of an article in the National Observer tabloid, which absolutely delighted in how far these 2 grand dames of high society had fallen, and even crowed over the fact that they were Jackie Kennedy Onassis, because she'd subsequently remarried her aunt and cousin.
It's a good story.
It is. So, Jackie and her sister, they knew their aunt and cousin were on hard times. They didn't know how bad.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually stepped in and paid $25,000, which is millions of dollars now, to bring the home up to code in order for the 2 women to not be evicted, and paid all the back taxes.
That's crazy. That house had to have been so messed up. They had to have messed that house up so much for it to cost that much to bring that house back to just in code. Not even that nice. Just back to code.
Well, it was so bad they were living without basic indoor plumbing because they couldn't afford a water bill.
They were pissing in buckets.
They were pissing in buckets.
They were pissing in litter boxes with the cats.
One description I had of the house at this time was it was basically a 32 room litter box.
Oh, jeez. It's a furry's wet dream.
No, okay, I'm losing the scarf.
It's very hot, guys. It is so hot in here. We're trying to be brave. We're trying so hard to be brave for you guys.
She's bald.
The reveal.
The reveal.
Exactly.
Now, at the time that they were doing, the work on the house, Lee was actually working on a documentary about her childhood growing up in the Hamptons with Albert and David Maisels. And she brought them to film the work going on because she actually had initially wanted Big Edie to narrate the film. Mm. However, Lee soon lost interest in doing the film altogether. And the Maisels approached the Beale women and they said, you were actually the best part of the film we got with Lee. Anyways, we want to do a documentary on you. So for like a year, they filmed the pair as they went about their eccentric lives in the decayed mansion. And then its resulting film, which was named after the state, Grey Gardens, is now a classic and a masterpiece of the documentary genre, and is sometimes credited as being a precursor to reality TV for its sensational inside look at people's lives and like how they've fallen. So like there wouldn't be like 1,000 Pound Sisters without this.
Okay.
Because you have to think like looking into like somebody else's suffering for entertainment.
That's tea.
Not that like the Edies were like suffering. Like they were both super like optimistic and like every line in the movie is just quote worthy.
Yeah, and like most gay people know this movie. It became a queer classic.
Yeah, and like Edie's a fashion icon because like they couldn't afford to go shopping, so like she was taking rugs and curtains and tablecloths and cutting them up to make clothes.
It's that theater background.
Yes. And she didn't call them like, they weren't outfits, they weren't clothes, it was, this is my costume.
Aren't we all just wearing costumes every day?
Now, this brought them a bunch of fame, and like there was a big New York premiere that Edie went to, and the phone was ringing off the hook for like people wanting to interview them, and like they were getting gifts, and it was like all very like great. Mm-hmm. And even though they were super famous now, they just kind of continued on with their lives. But the house had only heating in a few rooms, and the pair had to sleep on twin beds in an upstairs bedroom. As Big Edie got older, she was unable to get like up and down stairs due to her arthritis, and she grew super paranoid, wanting to be alone for a second. So Edie had to move a mini fridge and a hot plate up into the room so that she could cook in there too.
That's crazy. It sounds like these girls needed mental help. They needed some more help than what they were getting.
So there might have been black mold in the house.
Oh, that'll do it, girl.
And there's also a certain parasite that's attracted to cat feces or cat urine.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
And so it could be that if they like kind of got infected with this parasite, they wouldn't realize like how bad it was, and it causes mental alterations.
Oh, okay.
But also she's an old woman. Like she was when the movie came out in 1975, she was 80. In late 1976, Edith actually fell from her wheelchair. Like she had a rolling chair. It wasn't a wheelchair. Her rolling chair in the middle of the night, and Edie wasn't able to get her up off the floor until the morning when she called for friends to come help her. And Big Edie refused to go see a doctor because she kind of like was a Christian Scientist and believed like, oh, like God can heal me.
Surprise there. She got into crazy Christian shit.
Yeah. And that was a part of the film. Like she would listen to like this famous like radio pastor on the radio.
Did you know God made the dinosaurs?
You know, the Reverend Dr. Norman Vincent Beale, he says you just gotta make yourself happy and everything will turn around for you. I was happy, and then, I stubbed my toe on the morning of November 22nd, 1963, and bang, I heard that my niece Jackie's husband Jack was shot in Dallas. All because I stubbed my toe and I yelled, fuck.
That do be what some of those pastors sound like sometimes.
Early the following year, Edith finally agreed to go to the hospital where they found her suffering from pneumonia and sepsis from her fall the previous year, and she died on February 5th.
Rest in peace.
Edie continued to live in the house for 2 years while looking for a buyer, but her one condition for selling was that nobody would tear down the house.
Okay.
In 1979, she sold it to reporter Sally Quinn and her husband Ben Bradley, who is the former editor of the Washington Post who had overseen the paper's expose on the Watergate scandal, and a friend of John and Jackie Kennedy. Talk about recurring side characters.
Right. They're all twisted and turning into each other's lives, all twisted up.
Once she sold the home, she moved to New York, where she had a short career as a cabaret star, before she moved to Florida, where she kept a very neat and tidy apartment. So it might have been Big Edie who was the messy one.
Oh.
And swam nearly every day until she passed away in 2002, having outlived both of her brothers and her famous cousin Jackie.
Sounds like she had a good end of her years.
She did.
Swimming along, doing her thing.
So actually, when she was around 11 years old, she wrote a diary, and she called it, I only mark the shining moments. And that was just
so pretty. I like that thought.
And it was basically like she only remembers the happy times. Do you want more?
Yes.
So, Paul, you would think with such a long and interesting history, it comes as no surprise that Grey Gardens is haunted.
Not surprised there.
So one of the things that it is probably noted by anyone who knows anything about the story, who's seen the movie, is that Grey Gardens has this sense of timelessness.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, it's not like you can like imagine it happening at any point in time, but like there's a sense of you don't realize time is passing. And Edie really sums this up well. She has this famous line in the movie, and it's, sometimes it's very difficult to draw the line between the past and the present.
That's so spooky. That is such a creepy quote.
Yes. And now some people say that the timelessness in the movie was created because the Maisel brothers tried to make it seem like they were very insular characters living in their own little world. There's actually a ton of footage of them like going out to church and like going shopping and going to the beach that they didn't release for like 30 years.
It didn't fit the narrative. They had a specific narrative they wanted people to see.
And they actually, around the time the story got really big around the time Little Edie had passed away, because they did a Broadway musical based on it, which is fabulous. I love it. It's one of my favorites. And then in 2009, HBO did a movie on the two called Grey Gardens, starring Jessica Lange and Drew Barrymore. But the Maisels released a second documentary called The Beales of Grey Gardens, which was made from all the unreleased footage, and it's a totally different documentary.
That's crazy.
Like showing you a different side. And it was described by somebody as being a more realistic look at them. Because it does have that really weird stunted quality, because the Edies both just kind of like, they're just talking at the camera. But they actually cut out a lot of the Edies like trying to talk to Al and David. And they were like, no, just talk to the camera. Like, pretend like we're not here. Just talk to the camera.
Right.
To create that, like, kind of crazed look.
Interesting.
Not that they were, like, trying to make them look crazy. It was just trying to, like, showcase.
They had a specific narrative, and they needed to get that narrative across.
And before anyone cries misogyny, the film and sound was done by David and Al Maisels, but they had a 3-person editing team, and all 3 of those editors were women.
Period. We love an editing team of women. I wish I had an editing team of women so I didn't have to do it.
And the only thing that David and Al fought the women over was there was one point where Edie was talking about President Nixon. And the Maisels said, we want that out of there because it removes some of that timelessness, that out-of-time sensation. But even other people who've been in the house said, like, no, it's really weird because you don't know, like, are you in 1930s or are you in the 1980s, or like when are you?
Right. That's so interesting.
And like you don't really feel like time passing. Like one day you just wake up and it's like, holy shit, it's like I closed my eyes, it was beginning summer, now it's end of summer.
That's so interesting. I'd love to like go there and experience this timeless.
Well, you can't because it is still a private residence.
Not surprised.
But the Edies were they were some of the first people to report ghost sightings. Actually, Edie once reported her mother was talking on the phone to their friend Lois Wright, who is actually a noted psychic and palm reader.
Oh, they're spooky.
Yeah.
They're like the spooky girls.
They were big spooky. And Edie came in and asked to speak to Lois, and she said that she felt an electric presence. It felt like an electric current running through the middle of her room. And she sensed that it was her former lover, Cap Krug. And she did this on camera in front of the Maisels. Like, they captured this entire conversation on film. And I listened to a recording of it, and, like, it sounds crazy, but, like, the way she describes it, because she studied philosophy and she studied poetry, like, she was a very smart woman. And, like, the way she's describing, she's like, yeah, it was, like, electric, and I just felt it, and, like, it was Cap, like, I know it was my precious baby Cap, and, like, I really just know there's an afterlife because of this, because I could feel him so vividly. And she even goes to say, like, I just know there's an afterlife because his bones are down in Arlington, but I could feel him here with me, even though the body's in Arlington. And Edie was really, really big into astrology. She was in the movie, there's a couple times where she's reading from the book, All in the Stars by Zolar, which is a very 60s, 70s name for a book.
Right.
But she's in there and she's reading with a magnifying glass because she couldn't find her glasses. And she's reading about, like, oh, all I need is this Libra man.
The original astrology girly.
Yes, which is very much what we do today.
Well, I don't really get into astrology too much.
No, if I'm seeing a guy, I might, like, just look to see, like, how our star signs match up. But I don't, like...
live by it.
No, and, like, there have been some relationships where, like, I was dating a Cancer at one point, and, like, it really got it right because it was like, oh, Capricorns and Cancers, they're opposites, so, like, it's very polarizing because one minute they go from being totally, like, off one another into being all on one another, because it's, like, opposites attract, but also they're so opposite that, like, they're pulled apart.
Right.
Jerry Torr, who is the replacement handyman after Tom Logan died, reported feeling a man's presence in the kitchen where Tom had died and never went in there again.
That's spooky.
Now, I'm going to get into a big section about Lois Wright. That's psychic I mentioned above because she is a self-described ghost of Grey Gardens. And she calls herself that because she lived there for 13 months, including the last few months of filming of the documentary, but she was only included in one scene in the final product. So she was, like, there and she was seeing everything, but she wasn't included. So she was like, this is how a ghost feels, like she's seeing everything, but no one seemed to have seen her.
Interesting. She's a metaphorical ghost.
Yes. And in the one scene she was in, it was for Big Edie's 80th birthday, and she read her palm. When she was there, she did witness many actual ghost happenings. She reported that Edie often saw Cap, her dead lover, in the house, like just walking around. She stayed in a room that was called the Eye Room. And now, if you see the front of the house, it has a big window with those diamond panes in the front. And they call it the Eye Room.
Okay.
And she stayed in there. And in that room, she could feel a presence all the time. She would hear footsteps clomping even though she's the only one in the room. And in the rooms on either side, she would hear furniture being dragged across the floor in the middle of the night, even though those rooms had no furniture left in them.
That's interesting. Oh, wow.
At one point, she watched a puddle of urine pour on the floor from thin air, and she really tried to debunk this. She was like, okay, maybe it's Buster in the attic. And she felt the ceiling, and there was no wet spots, no cracks. It literally, she watched it just like out of thin air pour onto the floor.
I'm the piss ghost.
The Edie said, oh my god, it's Tom! Because he was always drunk, he probably would have just wandered to a room and pissed on the floor.
Oh my god. Could you imagine that being your legacy? He was just really into golden showers.
Oh, I think he was just a drunk man.
Who's into golden showers.
Okay, Paul. She even reported that she and the Edie saw a UFO fly over the house towards the ocean one night. She also reported seeing the ghost of Edith's brother, Blackjack, whom she suspected her mother of having an affair with and of being her real father. And she said that sometimes Big Edie would say something and give her this, like, a wink. And so she thinks, like, it was a secret that, like, Blackjack was actually her father.
Well, maybe if it was like she was doing this at the end of her life, maybe that's when the mold started kicking in, the crazy started happening, and she just didn't really know what she was saying.
Now, shortly before Lois moved out, she felt a total shift within the house, and she felt that it was as if the house was, like, gently pushing her to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually felt like a number of the ghosts within the house already were leaving with her.
Interesting. The ghosts were attached to her.
Well, she noted that the house reflected Edith's mood, Big Edie's mood.
Mm-hmm.
So when, like, around the time of the filming, the house looked a lot better than it had for years because Edie was in a really good mood. But this was also towards the end of Big Edie's life. And she said it started, like... She said, I was amazed because, like, a couple months ago, it was such a bright, happy house. And suddenly you could see how much it had decayed and how far it had fallen. Like, out of nowhere. It just, like, started to sag.
That's, like, a metaphor for, like, people, too. Mm-hmm. How quickly someone can fade like that also.
So when Sally Quinn moved in the house, she also had a number of experiences. When she was actually looking to buy the house, she said, I want to see this one. And her realtor said, I'm not going out there. We call that the witch house.
The witch house. Okay, I want to live in the witch house, though. Like, iconic.
So Sally drove out there and fell immediately in love with the house. She met with little Edie. And she, she went in. Rooms were full of cobwebs. The first floor was totally, like, they had to drag all the furniture out. They had a sunroom on the back. All the glass was shattered, but it didn't matter because there were such thick vines growing up of it that you could not see out the windows.
That's crazy.
And the walls were covered in cat shit. Like, I've heard interviews with her and she's like, yeah, it was covered in cat shit.
So she walked in and she said, yes, this is it.
And there were so many cats. Her husband was deathly allergic. He walked in, he immediately walked out. Like, he couldn't handle it. Like, he was going to die if he stayed there.
So then why did she like this house so much? What about this house?
She just felt something, and she turned to
It was all the cat shit she felt.
She turned to Edie. Well, she described it as, I saw what it was and what it could be again.
Mm-hmm.
And she turned to Edie and she said, I want this house. I love this house. And she says it was really cute because Edie did a little pirouette and said, all it needs is a coat of paint.
You can just paint over the cat shit.
Which, I mean, I would... Little Edie, best saleswoman ever. I'd buy anything off Little Edie Beale.
Yeah, she seems like an icon, honestly.
She is an icon. Now, she bought the home and she told Little Edie, you can either clean it, broom clean, like remove everything, including the dust and the cobwebs, or leave everything as is. Edie chose to leave everything as is.
Okay.
So Sally bought the house with all of its contents, and after she closed on it, it was November. In the Hamptons, it's gloomy. She drove up with her mother, and they were standing on the glassed-in porch, and finally it's November. A lot of those vines are dying so they can actually see the garden. They can see the walls are still standing. When she felt every hair on her body stand up on end, and she turned around and she saw a woman manifest from the darkness of the house in the doorway. It was Lois. And she said, how did you get in? And Lois said, I have no trouble getting into this house. Which is super creepy.
Was she dead at this time?
No.
That is weird. That don't sit right with me.
But Lois said, I had to come and speak to you because I have a message from Big Edie for you. She wants you to know she's very happy you bought this house. You're the perfect owner for this house. And she's going to look over the restoration for you and make sure everything goes perfectly. And she wants you to know you'll be in by next summer.
And also, you're going to have to fix that broken window.
Well, I don't think there were necessarily locks on the door. There weren't locks on the doors because the Edies, while they were living there, they wouldn't leave the door unlocked for very long. Like, just a couple seconds because of the burglaries. They were very paranoid. But also, they lost the keys. So someone always had to stay home because there was no key.
That's
someone had to be there to let you in.
So chaotic.
But, and Lois just, like, kind of left. And every architect, every carpenter, everyone that Sally talked to said, you have to just tear this down. It's a total loss. And she refused. And she finally found people to work on it. And somehow, someway, despite the house, like, being ready to collapse, construction on it was done ahead of schedule and under budget.
Damn.
Which never happens. And she was in there by next summer.
Her prediction came true.
She
Spooky.
also, there was a maid's room off the kitchen that was full of furniture and antiques, and the attic was full of furniture and antiques, so she actually furnished the house with almost entirely original furnishings.
See, that adds to the hauntings, using like the original. Well,
speaking of the
furniture.
Hauntings, one of the things she found this crate that was nailed shut, and it just said Jacqueline Kennedy on it. And they opened it and it had this beautiful sterling silver antique mirror. And it's, they have no idea whether it was a gift from Jackie that she just, like, passed on to them, or if it was a gift to Jackie that they never sent, or if it was something that Jackie had bought for them and just gave them and they never opened it.
Interesting.
And it was one of the only things that she kept after she moved out of the house.
I'd keep it too if it was Jackie Kennedy's. Why not? That's special.
Now, to get into some of the ghosts that Sally actually saw, she would often see Anna Gilman Hill, who is the gardener, wafting through the first floor in her gardening outfit. And one night, her husband Ben woke up and said, "What the fuck is that?" And Sally sat up, and there was Anna Gilman Hill standing at their bedroom door before she just vanished. And one housekeeper actually quit after running into the ghost.
Some people just can't handle spooky shit.
The spirit in the eye room continued to make its presence known through its midnight noises, like the stomping, the furniture moving. And once, Sally woke up to find Senator Barry Goldwater sleeping in the kitchen. And when asked, he said, "There's a ghost in that room and I won't sleep in there with it."
I'd sleep with the ghost.
You would sleep with the ghost?
We have slept with ghosts.
There is also the ghost of an old sea captain in Edie's former room who stomps around. It is believed that he was her lover and would climb through the window from a ladder, and that at one point when he was trying to climb out, he fell from the ladder and died, and now his spirit's roaming the house looking for little Edie.
That's crazy. It's like, where's my girl?
Where is she? Woman, where are you? I have a hankering for the sweet caresses of a woman after a long time at sea.
Very that.
Now, it should be noted that both Sally and Lois agree that Edith and Edie do not haunt the house. Lois actually went to visit the house in 2017 while it was having work done it after Sally had sold it to Liz Lang. And she immediately became distressed and demanded to leave because she said, "The Edies aren't here and it feels like I'm intruding." You know, like when you walk into a friend's house and they're not there and it's kind of like, oh, this is kind of weird?
Yeah,
She felt that.
Okay.
And Sally believes it's because the pair had so many struggles there that once they passed, they just moved on somewhere else. But she still considers her time there wonderful and is thankful to both the women for the chance to live there.
That's sweet. That's cute.
And actually, I think I want to do an entire episode on Sally Quinn because she's actually a self-proclaimed witch.
I like that.
There's a guest house on the property, and her kids called it the fairy house because she used it for her Ouija board and tarot readings. And she actually put a hex on 3 different people, and they all died. She wrote a whole memoir about it, and I want to read it, and I want to come back and talk all about Sally Quinn.
That sounds really interesting, actually. I would be set for that. And I was set for this story because, icons and, them two just living in their own world and just, being... I don't know.
It's inspiring, kind of. Well, I really liked it because my mother was kind of eccentric growing up.
Mm-hmm.
She was very straight, but, she always wore her hair, short and super short, and she wore men's clothes, swore like a sailor, and she'd like march to the beat of her own drum. And so I actually showed her the movie with Drew Barrymore and Jessica Lange. And I said, this really reminds me of what you and I could be in like 50 years. Except my mom died.
Yeah, what can you do?
And today as I was doing this research, and I was like, am I in my little Edie phase now? Like, am I just like going about my life and I'm going to drop dead soon?
Girl, I hope not. That's spooky.
Well, it's only been 10 years. I've got about 25 more to go. Or 15 more to go out of the 25 little Edie had.
Right. We got a lot of spooky shit to do, okay?
So, Paul, smash or pass? Jinx Monsoon as little Edie Beale on Smash Games.
It was very funny, that Snatch Game character she did on Little Edie, but I'm gonna have to pass because I'm not attracted in the slightest to that character.
I'm gonna pass just because it was such a good impression, or I'm gonna smash just because it was such a good impression. That,
It was.
I'm gonna give it to you, Jinx.
Yeah, Jinx Monsoon doing Little Edie, one of the best Snatch Games ever.
Jinx Monsoon. I'm so glad that Jinx is now doing theater because, like, Jinx is such a talented actor.
I know, it's crazy.
And, I mean, I know they're trans feminine, or...
They're trans, yes.
They're trans.
Feminine, yes.
Okay. I didn't know if, like... Okay. Perfect. They, them, right? Still? Or is it she,
Don't
her?
fucking know.
Okay.
Not keeping
We'll go
tally.
with they. But, they're little Edie, they're Judy Garland. I mean, I blatantly stole the, is this my camera?
Right.
Because it's so funny.
She is so smart. Now, going back to Edith and Edie, I do think it's interesting that there was probably, like, black mold and all sorts of, like, things, like, messing with their heads while they were living there. And I think that could have even added to the paranormal activity they were experiencing.
That they experienced, yes. And, like, I mean, the house is flung parts of the electric current could very well have been that. But, like, the people who, like, after it was restored seeing this stuff...
Yeah, and honestly, the people who live there after, those ghost stories you just told me, those are a lot more interesting than what Little Edie and whatever they were saying.
I will give it that, like, the Edies are more interesting than what they saw in the terms of the ghosts. But you can't talk about Grey Gardens without...
No, what I'm saying is their paranormal experiences were not as interesting.
Yes.
They are interesting people, but their paranormal experiences
and I'm
aren't.
agreeing. And it's just a case of, like... Unlike most of the ghost stories we tell, the people who lived there were more interesting than the people who experienced than the ghost stories they experienced. But when you look at it, there is something really gothic about their fall from grace, like very Miss Havisham from Oliver Twist.
Don't know her, but
she was a character. She was a spinster who's left on her wedding day, and she like spent the rest of her life walking around in her wedding dress, and her dining room she like was still set for the wedding breakfast that never happened.
You said Miss Havisham?
Yeah.
Are you sure that was Oliver Twist? I read that book in English. That might have been Great Expectations.
That was Great Expectations.
And I'm school. See, I know shit, y'all.
Oliver Twist was, may I have some more, sir? More?
See, I know. I've read books, guys.
I should have known Oliver Twist from Reba.
honestly. But I do think there is something to be said and a lesson to be learned about how they're living in this trash place, but they're living their best life.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a lesson to be learned there, I think.
I only mark the moments that shine.
Yes,
I think that's the lesson from today's episode.
We're only marking the lessons that... Moments that shine. Not lessons, moments that shine.
Yes.
Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I'm just hot and I want to turn the AC back on.
Yes, it's hot as shit in here, guys, so let's wrap this shit up.
Thank you so much for listening. We definitely always appreciate it. Please connect with us on our social medias. You can find those all below. And be sure to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you are listening. Paul, where can they find you?
You can find me at my personal Instagram and TikTok at Paulember, Paulember. And as usual, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
And you can follow me on Instagram and on TikTok at The Real Teach Powers. And until next time, remember to keep your grips tight.
And your quirks loose.
Bye.
It's sweaty as shit in here.